Welcome to the second webinar on inspirational authorship. Hi, I'm Joyce Ross. In the first webinar, we examined golden writing key number 1, which is develop a storyline that includes an intriguing opening paragraph, an emotional ride in the middle, and a memorable conclusion. In this webinar, we will study golden writing key number 2 and the first part of golden writing key number 3. Golden writing key number 2 is craft a title and opening line that will grab readers' attention. Golden writing key number 3, part 1, is narrate in an active, not passive voice. Let's look at how to craft a title and opening line that grabs readers' attention. You've likely heard the expression hook, line, and sinker. Think of your title as reader bait. The title is the hook that makes people want to read your book, novel, short story, or blog. Your first sentence or two is the line to your sinker being your opening paragraph where readers begin to sink into your story. Here's what makes a title reader bait. It's intriguing, memorable, and short. Long titles are cumbersome to say and difficult to remember. Your title should also be in keeping with the tone and mood of your writing. It should also relate to your topic and theme. When you begin a piece of writing, if you haven't thought of a title that will hook readers, make do with anything that you can think of. When you're finished your first draft, peruse your writing for a sentence, catchy turn of phrase, or memorable reference that would serve as an intriguing title. Monica Forster's title, Tears in My Ears, in Heartmind Wisdom number 1, is definitely catchy and memorable. It's also one of my all-time favorites. Monica's title is in reference to a CT scan she had during her battle with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Here's the passage in her story that relates to her title. Willing my tears to stop, just increase them in number and size. As each pair streamed down my temples, tickling as they meandered into one ear and then the other, unable to shudder, tilt my head sideways, or wipe them away, I cried harder. Neither my unspoken repeated commands of "Stop crying, Monica," nor my begging, "Oh, please stop crying," ceased the flood. The tears in my ears pooled until they overflowed down my neck, announcing their exit with more tickling. Oh, how long a half hour can seem. Here's a tip about titles. Alliteration, the use of words that begin with the same sound and are positioned near one another, as in Wild and Woolly or a Babbling Brook, can make for a catchy and memorable title. However, don't get too carried away. If you overdo alliteration, your title might seem forced or silly. Brock Tully's use of alliteration in his title, Bouncing Back from Brock Bottom, in Heartmind Wisdom number 1, alludes to his topic and is a catchy play on words. From his title alone, readers will assume his story is about hitting rock bottom and that though the subject is serious, it will be written in a lighter tone. Here's Brock's opening paragraph. In 1970, at age 23, I was totally disconnected from myself, deeply depressed, and daily struggling with nagging thoughts of taking my life. Remarkably, over time, I came to see that this seemingly bleak existence was truly a blessing. Brock's opening paragraph confirms the assumptions readers will make from his title: serious subject, lighter tone. His claim that being suicidal eventually became a blessing is intriguing. Readers will wonder how that's possible. To find out, they must keep reading. Here's another title tip. Consider a title that evokes imagery in readers' minds. In Heartmind Wisdom number 1, Arnold Bingsness titled his chapter, Escape from the Green Room. It seems like a title that would be more fitting to a spy or thriller novel than an inspirational anthology. Its seeming unsuitability among an array of uplifting titles makes Arnold stand out. Arnold's title will definitely invoke imagery in readers' minds. Most people know that a green room is a place in a studio where guests can relax before appearing on television, or an area in a theater where actors gather before a performance. The image conjured in readers' minds will be of someone trying to find a way out of a locked green room. While picturing him trying to escape, readers will wonder who locked him in there and why. Intrigued, they'll read Arnold's story. He doesn't keep readers wondering for long. In his opening paragraph, he describes the sparse green room referenced in his title and sets readers up to wonder about something else. What went wrong with his life? Let's take a look. Images of my worthless butt hurtling like a broken twig along Vancouver's mean streets. I coiled beneath the prickly gray blankets of my much too short cot, listening to the winter storm claw and screech with undulating fury. Even the meager shelter of the windowless closet-sized green room would soon be out of my financial reach. How in the world did I end up here? What happened to me? It's a great opening paragraph. Here's an example of a passive sentence. At dinner, 6 shrimp were eaten by Harry. I found this example on the internet. What struck me most about this sentence wasn't that it's written in a passive voice. The first thought that popped into my mind was, why would anybody care enough about what poor Harry ate to write about it? Was there a shortage of shrimp? Was Harry allergic to shrimp? Did the guy fall off his vegan diet? Okay, I'm just kidding. In addition to the craziness of one person paying attention to what someone else ate, what's also noticeable about this sentence is that it's awkward and wordy. Here's the same sentence written in an active voice. Harry ate 6 shrimp at dinner. Now that it's written in an active voice, it reads better and has 6 words instead of 8. The difference between an active and passive sentence is mostly about who gets to be top dog. By top dog, I mean who or what gets to be the subject in the sentence, or the person or thing that the sentence is about. In the first example, the 6 shrimp have been elevated to subject position when that honor should belong to Harry. After all, he did the eating. He was the one who took action. He ate, not the shrimp. They were acted upon when Harry ate them. They're the object, associated with Harry's actions. You likely remember from grade school English classes that the subject of a sentence is the person or thing performing an action, and the object of a sentence is the person or thing receiving the action. Here's another example of a passive sentence. I was sometimes hated by him. This passive sentence is wordy. Here's the same sentence written in an active voice. He sometimes hated me. This active sentence is succinct. It has only 4 words and it's easy to read. Let's do a grammar check. He is now the subject who sometimes hated me, the object. Though passive sentences aren't necessarily wrong, you can see that they're definitely wordy and awkward. This is why it's important for authors to be able to identify a passive sentence and how to rewrite it so that it becomes active. I can't imagine any writer being pleased with a review that cited the writing as being wordy and awkward. Okay, likely influenced by Ernest Hemingway's economical and understated style, from the 20th century to this day, concise and simple text has been considered a hallmark of good writing. This is why writing teachers advise new authors to write tight. You most likely know that Ernest Hemingway was a renowned and respected American novelist, short story writer, and journalist. When asked for insights on his writing technique, he said, "My aim is to put down on paper what I see and what I feel in the best and simplest way." Hemingway wasn't the first notable fan of concise and simple prose. Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd President of the United States and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, said, "The most valuable of all talents is that of never using 2 words when one will do." In addition to being awkward and wordy, passive sentences often exclude important information, sometimes intentionally. A politician might deliberately use a passive sentence to avert blame, such as in the sentence, Mistakes were made. Who made them? News reporters use passive sentences when they have incomplete information. For instance, when the culprit who robbed a store is unknown, the headline might read, "Downtown store robbed." Obviously, a store cannot be the thing performing an action. To make this sentence active, a reporter could instead write, "Someone robbed a downtown store." Someone is capable of taking action, so the sentence is now active. However, it's not quite as catchy or dramatic as the headline written in a passive voice. According to Grammar Girl, one of my favorite online go-to grammar experts, the definition for passive voice is as follows. It's a verb form that meets two requirements. First, it must have a past participle, such as loved or given, and second, its subject fills a different semantic role than in the active voice. Okay, don't panic. I'm not going to teach you about past participles and other grammar jargon that I'll have you hitting the video stop button before I can say gerund. Instead, let's compare a few passive and active sentences. Here we go. The new reality that was faced by me was that of being alone. That's a passive sentence. Here it is written in active voice. I was faced with a new reality. I was alone. Here's another example of passive. The actions taken by him weren't always kind. Here it is written in an active voice. His actions weren't always kind. Here's it written in an active voice and tighter. He was often unkind. A sense of abandonment was experienced by me. Passive. I experienced a sense of abandonment. Active. I felt abandoned. Active and tighter. The insinuation came as a surprise to me. Passive. Whose insinuation? I was surprised by his or her insinuation. Active. Anger was a common emotion felt by me. Passive. I was often angry. Active and tight. The application to divorce was filed. Passive. Whose divorce? Who filed it? I filed my divorce application. Active. The decision to leave was made by him. Passive. He decided to leave. Active and tight. That's it for our lesson on the differences between active and passive sentences. Though a far less noble reason than improving your writing, becoming familiar with grammar terminology and learning nifty skills such as how to make passive sentences active also saves you from feeling inferior or ignorant when you're conversing with others in our field. Now, when you're speaking to a publisher, editor, or fellow author, you'll have at least a vague idea of what's meant by the comment, "So-and-so's book is littered with passive sentences." For those of you who hate studying grammar, you can stop groaning, tapping your toes, and rolling your eyes. I'll go back to what matters most to all of us, and that's inspirational authorship. When writing about emotions, thoughts, or actions they don't wish to own, or when being cautious about how readers might interpret what they've written, some new inspirational authors switch from narrating in active voice to narrating in passive voice. When reading an initial draft from someone who's done this, I can easily imagine the wheels that were burning rubber in their head. Yeah, they go like this. I need to tone this down or readers will think I'm not healed. Or how can I write this so it doesn't appear as though I did something wrong? Or I better be careful how I word this. I don't want to make him or her sound like a monster. Or I don't want to hurt or shock the people I love. How can I soften this? As I said during our first writing lesson, you don't need to be completely healed to share your story in a bid to help others. What makes an inspirational story interesting is the transformation of the central character. That's you. Though integrity is crucial when writing inspiring prose, being honest does not require that you reveal parts of your journey or parts of anyone's personality or behavior that you're not prepared to share. For instance, if you were raped or beaten and fear that sharing the graphic details will disturb or hurt family members or someone else that you love, don't recount them. Instead, state that you were raped or assaulted and then write about how that horrific event changed your life. Powerful declarations such as, I was raped, or I was sexually assaulted by someone I loved are sufficient to set the stage for your immediate and lingering emotional, intellectual, and behavioral reactions. Inspirational authorship is about the actions and realizations that help you move forward to a state of well-being. It's quite acceptable to treat a horrific event as mere background information. The same principle applies to writing about an ex-spouse. When writing an inspirational story, you are the central character, not your ex. To benefit from your Heartmind wisdom, readers do not need the nitty-gritty details about his or her fetishes, faults, and flaws. If you divorced your spouse because he/she beat you, that's all you need to write. My ex-husband or my ex-wife beat me is sufficient information. After stating the reason for your divorce, switch to writing about your experiences. For instance, you might want to tell readers about the moment you realized your ex would never change. Maybe you had a pivotal realization while you were studying your most recent black eye in the mirror, or while you were being treated at the emergency room. Your writing should focus on your feelings, thoughts, and emotions and actions, not your ex's behaviors and shortcomings. If you prefer to avoid writing about why you divorced, maybe because there's children involved or because you like your in-laws, don't provide reasons for your divorce. Instead, tell readers about how it felt to be out on your own after many years. You're the writer. You decide what to disclose. In my last video, I promised that I'd talk about where to begin your inspirational story. The first question to ask yourself when developing your storyline is, what will readers find most intriguing about my healing journey? The second is, how can I begin my story so that readers feel like they're in the middle of the action? Those are two really important questions that I'm going to talk more about. Once you have the answers to these two questions, you'll know exactly how to begin your inspirational story. What's most intriguing about your story might be your aha moment. However, it could also be something that happened to you years before an aha moment. In Heartmind Wisdom number 1, Erica Taylor started her chapter from neediness to wholeness with a call she received from a stranger who told her that her ex-boyfriend had died. She then described her shocked reaction before segueing into her relationship with this man from years before. Her aha realizations don't enter into her story until the second page. However, from her first couple of paragraphs, readers will know that whatever insights Erica will eventually share, they will in some way be connected with the man who died. When considering her first paragraph in conjunction with her title, From Neediness to Wholeness, readers will easily discern that Erica's inspirational message is about how she learned that she didn't need to be in a relationship to feel whole. Let's take a look at the beginning of Erica's story. The voice at the other end of the line was solemn. I'm afraid I have some sad news for you. Ben has died. It was his wish that you receive this message. He lived with the regret of having lost you and never found anyone with whom he had the same depth of connection. I sat wordlessly on my sofa, remembering that romantic love relationship of 40 years ago and its devastating end. The caller's words brought back to mind the sharp sting of rejection as I recalled how many a night my anguished sobs sought release in the dark solitude of my room. How was I to integrate the caller's message with these painful memories? My thoughts turned to that hot summer night in Saskatoon when love first beckoned and I innocently followed. How my heart raced when a tall, attractive young man invitingly extended his hand to me, drawing me onto the dance floor. A moment later, we were moving in sync to the sultry sounds of the R&B band, enjoying the palpable energy and vibrancy between us. Conversation flowed as though we were kindred spirits, and with youthful exuberance, we shared significant parts of our past and visions of our future. We laughed with the lightness of being and delighted in the compatibility and harmony seemingly bestowed on us by grace. Wonderful romantic beginning to Erica's story. The reader will definitely be drawn in and want to know where it goes. This completes today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it and feel better equipped to tell your story. It's time for your writing exercise. This exercise is called Mapping Your Storyline. Completing it will help you identify two crucial plot elements. One, where to begin your inspirational story, and two, how you might start writing your story in the middle of the action. By middle of the action, I'm referring to the center happenings of a traumatic or dramatic event, a high point in your healing journey, a life-altering change in circumstance, or an aha moment. The second part of the exercise from Golden Writing Key number 1 was categorizing your healing journey into a chart. The instructions were, in column 1, list the catalytic events, circumstances, and people that inspired your aha realization. In the second column, list notable shifts in you, psychologically, emotionally, and behaviorally. These would be after your aha realization. In the third column, list the action steps you took following your aha realization. In the fourth column, list any additional realizations you had as you journeyed forward from your aha moment or realization. Completing the Golden Writing Key number 1 chart exercise will make mapping your storyline exercise a breeze to complete. If you have yet to watch the video or complete the exercise, I advise you to do both. For this exercise, using a storyline map that replicates the one you see on the screen, in the first column, list what you believe are the intriguing events, highlights, circumstance changes, and aha moments in your healing journey. In the center column, list the corresponding middle of the action happenings and realizations. In the far right column, list your primary and secondary inspirational messages. For instance, in the first column, Erica might have written, realizing I didn't need to be in a relationship to feel whole. In the corresponding center column, she might have written, phone call telling me Ben was dead. In the far right column, she might have written, 1, the importance of self-value, and 2, don't let others define you. In the first column, Arnold might have written, finding myself broke and living above Skid Row, Vancouver. In the center column, he might have written, my first night in the green room as my financial reality finally registered. In the far right column, he might have written, 1, look within for answers and solutions, and 2, pride is a sneaky nemesis. My recommendation is that you list at least 3 intriguing events, highlights, change circumstances, or aha moments in the first column. Of course, I also recommend that you list the corresponding middle of the action happenings and realizations, and your corresponding inspirational messages. Don't worry if your inspirational messages overlap. They'll probably be quite similar. Then, over the following few days, consider which inspirational message you most want to share in a bid to help others. That's where your story starts.